Lieutenant Governor, you've grown up in America. You've seen the American dream play out in your life. Now we're almost at a crossroads. We're coming up on midterm elections that could determine the future of our country. One path is follow the Constitution, which you are obviously in favor of. The other path is more collectivism, socialism, communism. Tell us what we need to be doing. How do we stay on the right path, and where will it take us?
I think the number one thing that we need to do is we need to tell our friends and neighbors about the situation that we face. You know, we talk about, for example, in North Carolina, people call North Carolina a purple state. I don't believe that. I believe North Carolina is solid red. The problem is we don't have the engagement that we need. You look at the numbers of evangelicals that don't vote. You look at the amount of, in some cases, minorities, Hispanics and or black people who do not vote. We need engagement. And I believe if we get that engagement, if we get in front of those folks, if we tell them the message about how conservatism is the answer, about how principles work, but ideas don't. And
Can you explain? Principles work and ideas don't.
Well, it's simple. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. The Green New Deal is an idea. It has very little principle behind it. When asked, how are we going to pay for this? Nobody knows. When asked, what effect is this going to have on our economy? Nobody knows. When they ask, how is this going to change anything? They can't give a definite answer. Ideas are great. Ideas are great, but ideas only work if you place principles behind them. The idea of the airplane was a fantastic image in someone's head, but it did not become a thing. It did not become a working vehicle until the Wright brothers put the principle of lift into action and made it so. That's the difference between conservatives and our opponents on the other side of the aisle, our opposition on the other side of the aisle. The opposition, they operate under ideas. We operate off principles. We put those principles into action in North Carolina, and we changed the economic future and the economic structure of North Carolina. The engine is firing on all cylinders. Why? Because we put conservative principles into place. We need to get out and tell people about that. And we need to tell people about who conservatives actually are and stop letting the news media do that.
Well, the news media has characterized the conservative as Donald Trump, and he's a racist, and he's a homophobe, and he's all these other things.
Absolutely.
But the reality of it is you're among the conservatives. I'm among the conservatives.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of beautiful men and women of all races that are conservatives.
That's exactly right. And that's the story we need to start telling our friends and our neighbors. And I think if we do that, it will energize the people who are not engaged. And those are the folks we need to be going after, the unengaged. It's too many of them out there who are not engaged in this process and don't understand that people say, I don't do politics. Yes, you do. If you get out of bed, you do politics. As a matter of fact, if you're in your grave, you're doing politics. No matter who you are, if you lived in this place, you're doing politics. And the truth be told, if you don't do politics, politicians are going to do you.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
they're going to do you in.
No question about that. Okay, so we've talked about the border. We've talked about the economics. We've talked about, I love the ideas versus principles, because the idea was NAFTA, but we didn't really have a principle to put it in place. How do we make America great?
Well, we make America great not by having a revolution, but by having a revival. The difference between a revolution and a revolution is when you try something new. A revival is when you turn back to those time-honored traditions that give you those results that you know will come from it. We need to go back to the principles that made this nation great. We need to go back to educating our children instead of indoctrinating our children. We need to tell our children that this nation was built by people, good people of all colors, all stripes, all religions, who came together and wanted to do the right thing. We need to make our country business friendly. We need to stop this foolish notion that the world needs to be run according to some climate change science that has proven to it's done nothing but lie to people over the last 30 or 40 years. When I was a young man, they told me there would be no more polar bears. There are more polar bears now, I believe, than there ever has been. They told us the ice caps would be melted. And now we see this extreme push to push everything in that direction. We got to stop doing that. We got to get back to the common sense principles that built this nation and gave us the prosperity that we have. If we go back to those principles that are based on God's word and based on solid economic and scientific principles that have built the things that we have in this nation, we'll continue to see this nation flourish. if we continue to embrace these ideals of socialism and communism, you can bet that misery is in our future.